right, we're driving into the apocalypse. Here we go. Complete whiteout. Look at that. I haven't gone live or uploaded a video on this channel in quite some time. I do have some footage. Actually, I have quite a bit of footage from the last blizzard that came through here. And still I have some leftover storm chasing footage from summer. Believe it or not, I still haven't had a chance to get around to editing that. But I wanted to get on here and give you guys an update as to what's going on with the storm chasing channel. We are going full force, absolute full force storm chase mode this spring. And then hopefully if I get enough footage, I can do something kind of different this year. I'm looking to kind of make like, I don't want to give away too much, but we'll call them like episodes instead of videos. And that's kind of my goal for this channel, is I want to do like these storm chasing documentary type things, which would be, I think it's going to be kind of hard to pull off because obviously I'm not a director, I'm not a producer, but I do know a thing or two about making a video. And so I feel like I could pull this off. And you know, we're not out there doing science stuff, but we do have a drone pilot who can fly a drone into a tornado if we need to. And so even doing something like that just to see if we can achieve it, I think would be a lot of fun. But right now, I'm just driving through some dense fog to show you guys what that's all about. As you can see, visibility is less than half a mile, less than probably a quarter mile visibility. Not even. It's pretty bad. And it gets even worse at night. You know, when your headlights are reflecting off this stuff, oftentimes you can only see 2 to 3 of those dots in the middle at one time. But anyway, I know I haven't uploaded a whole lot, and that's because storms happen in the spring and summer, and so I basically really don't have much to post right now other than things that I think may bore you. Like the other day, I filmed for 45 minutes of just driving through dense fog, and I just don't know if you guys would be into watching something like that. So it's way more entertaining when you have this massive mothership supercell to look at. And that's what we're absolutely going to try our best to capture this spring. Is we want more tornadoes on video than we did last year. I want to try to at least get 4. My goal is to get 4 tornadoes on video in 2023. If I can do that, then I will have had a successful year. But you know what? Sometimes it just doesn't happen. The conditions aren't right, or we're in the wrong place, or we picked the wrong supercell to chase. So we'll see what happens. But this year I've got I've got one other guy that's going to be going with me, who's pretty good with radar and meteorology in general. So he's going to be going with me, and he's going to be doing his own streaming as well while we're out there. I don't know, like every now and then we'll be in the same vehicle together, and we'll probably be streaming separately. He's going to stream on his laptop in his vehicle, and then other times we'll be chasing in separate vehicles on different parts of the storm so that we can capture 2 angles. You know, maybe I'm in the bad spot and he's in a good spot. He'll get the video of the tornado then, or vice versa, other way around. And then my brother too, he's going to be storm chasing again. Probably this time more eastern North Dakota. I'm still out here in western North Dakota, but I do travel sometimes. I'll travel as far as Nebraska or the other side of Montana if the conditions are right. And that means, you know, we're assuming perfect storm conditions here. Like the SPC would have to have a moderate risk, and there would have to be a very clear, visible line on the 3-day radar. And if there's a very clear visible line so we can get an idea of where we need to position ourselves a day before, then I will absolutely be chasing that setup. So that's what we're going to be doing in the springtime. But yeah, I think it's been at least a month since my last upload on this channel. I do apologize for that. There's not a whole lot I can do about it though. Just, I mean, look around. We got fog. It's been like this for 2 weeks. Nothing to see out here. And you know, this is partially like kind of affecting the firework channel too, because I can't really do fireworks in the fog, nor do I want to, because you wouldn't really be able to see them. And also with this fog, we got wind and it's cold. And I just wish that the weather would get a little nicer out here. It seems like the only week this winter that we've had nice weather was right around New Year's, like after New Year's. And now, you know, it's completely gone away. And then the whole month, basically the entire month of December and November were crap. So it was either too cold to go outside, or windy, or snowing, or all three. And now we're dealing with this fog, which we've been dealing with for a month. Like every night when I'm driving, there's major fog. It's impossible to see at night. You got to have your, luckily in my pickup, I can point my headlights down towards the road, but I know in most vehicles you don't have that option. But if I didn't have that option, I simply would not be able to drive at night with all this fog that we've had. Might have asked this before. I do use a special app. Actually, I use a couple of them. So number one, so this is good. I might actually do a full video on this spring, or it might make it into one of those like little mini docuseries episodes thing that I was talking about with the drone stuff. So my main go-to, just quick, it's easy to access, easy to read, easy to look at. If we need to make fast decisions, the one that I use is called My Radar, okay? For me, that is the absolute most up-to-date, just fastest way to refresh and look at the radar. And the app is called My Radar. Now, they have a subscription option for a pro version, which I recommend getting. I think it's like $9 a year. And that's the one I've been using the longest. Number two, this one is extremely important too. You've got to have radar scope, but you have to have, well, you don't necessarily have to have the pro version, but I do just because I don't like taking chances, and it shows you more stuff if you have the pro version. Like you can have the spotter network. If you log in, you can see where all the other storm chasers are. So that can be a useful tool if you're just starting out. You can, you know, well, where is everyone else at? And what position are they taking? But the reason why I like the pro version of Radar Scope is it has nothing to do with any of that. It has everything to do with, I can look at past radar loops, like several years ago. So what I can do with that is if there was ever an instance where, you know, I was in a storm and I found out there was a tornado somewhere that I didn't see, but I just happened to be a few miles away from, I can go back on the radar loop and figure out where I went wrong and where I should have been in that scenario. And then the next time I see a setup like that in real-time radar, I can make the right call. For instance, I spent a lot of time going back on that storm from May 12th that really made me rethink a lot of this stuff, and, you know, really go back in and try to learn, relearn, like reprogram my brain to actually, you know, be as safe as possible when it comes to storm chasing. Because that could have gone south, as you know, like real quick, it could have gone south. But I've looked at that radar loop from that day, like every radar image you can possibly imagine, and over the course of like an hour, 2 hours, and studied the hell out of it. And I think if I could go back, I'd do it again. I would just be in a slightly different spot. I don't think I would have drove right into the RFD and right into the circulation. But also at the time, I wasn't as good as noticing those rotation couplets on the velocity. And you guys probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you get radar scope, just play around with it, and you know, you can see on radar scope, it allows you to see velocity as well as reflectivity. And velocity comes in handy if you're trying to pinpoint an area of rotation in a high precipitation supercell or storm. And you can't really use reflectivity, which is regular radar, I guess you could call it. That's the radar that everybody knows how to look at and read. You know, red means downpour rain, pink usually means super downpour rain and hail. You know, things like that. That's the radar that everybody knows. But velocity can help you if you're going into a storm blind and there's rain. There's so much rain you can't see anything. But with velocity, it helps you to be able to see, kind of like night vision almost. You know, you're out there in the storm and you can't see the tornado. You know it's there, but if you look at the velocity and you know how to read it, you can find that tornado without even having to see it. And so velocity, if used right, you got to learn how to do that. You got to watch YouTube tutorials if you're not sure, or go to the Skywarn trainings. But that is a very useful tool. So radar scope as the second one. The first one is my radar, just to, if they're isolated supercells and I don't have to worry about a linear storm mode, I will use my radar. If it's like a linear storm mode, otherwise known as a derecho, I'm using radar scope, because that shows me where, you know, if you have a kink in the line on that bow or whatever, that shows you where the danger areas are and where to be for best position to film a tornado. The third one is I just use obviously I have the SPC website saved as an app. You can do that with a website, is you can just convert the website to an app. So I have that one just so I can check, because sometimes they update the day of and they will add like a new tornado risk area. And this is something you wouldn't know unless you were constantly refreshing that. The other one that I use, so I have radar scope, my radar, and then I use the SPC website for finding, you know, sometimes it'll tell you 5 days ahead of time if there's going to be tornadoes, it's incredible that we're able to do that. But that one I use for like predicting, or I guess figuring out where we need to go to film storms. And then there's that HRRR, or the NAM or whatever, which is like a predicted future radar. So if you search NAM radar on Safari, or if you search HRRR, you'll be able to find these two models that show you a predicted path of where anything that is showing up on radar, right? So that would be your reflectivity is showing you that there's rain. Well, what these two models do is they show you where that rain is going to go next. So like, it's usually not accurate though. Like, I'll tell you, don't rely on that stuff, because sometimes it'll just straight up show a gap and that gap never ends up happening. And sometimes there's a tornado there. So the NAM and the HRRR, you can't rely on, but it gives you an idea of where to go, where to be, because you know that it's going to be somewhat right. Now they're using like AI and stuff and formulas and calculators and some of the smartest people on earth to, you know, program these things. So it'll show you where the rain's going to go. It'll show you where potential supercells are going to form, but it's never pinpoint accuracy. The only way you're going to get pinpoint accuracy is being able to identify storm structure in clouds. And that's like, you got to have that down right away. That's the first thing you need to learn, is how to identify clouds and what do different clouds mean. Once you've done that, then you have to learn radar. And once you've learned radar, then you have to learn velocity. And once you've got those three things down, I think you're as better of a storm chaser as anyone else. Like you could literally be just as good as Reed Timmer or some of these other big, huge name storm chasers, as long as you are a master of those three things. So yeah, identifying clouds and storm structures. So that means knowing the names of everything in the sky that you're looking at and knowing it by heart. So like, if you just got a glimpse of something, you'd be able to, bam, that's a Mamadas cloud or something like that. You have to know that stuff first. Then you got to know radar. You got to know classic signatures, what to look for in a supercell, because sometimes a supercell looks like a little bean, and it does not always look like a typical supercell. And those same supercells can produce long track tornadoes. So you have to be able to look at that, and then once you've got radar figured out, then you learn velocity. And once you've learned velocity, it all kind of clicks, and you're like, oh my God, I can do this. I can chase a tornado confidently, and I think I can find one because I know how to read all three of these things. So yeah, I kind of was rambling, but anyway, this is what the dense fog looks like. How's there, Ryan? Did that answer your question? Roads are not icy, but it's pretty cold. Right now my pickup is reading 25. I guess that's not terrible considering what we've had, but yeah, and just so everyone's aware, I'm no expert. I did not go to school for this stuff. I did not go to college for meteorology. This is just a childhood passion of mine that has somehow carried over into adulthood. And I remember the first time I went to a Skywarn training with my dad, and I couldn't have been, you know, I was probably somewhere between the age of like 5 and 8, I don't know, somewhere around there. But we went, and the reason we went is because I remember like asking him about a storm one night, and I was like, why is the sky green? Or I said something like that, and I wanted to learn more about it, and so he offered to bring me to that Skywarn training. We both went, and ever since then I've been hooked. And you know, then you watch, you know, as a child you watch the movie Twister, and the rest is history. Like, I was literally hooked. I wanted to do what those guys did, but there's really no realistic way to do that unless you're Team Twistex or something like that. They were actually putting instruments inside tornadoes, like exactly like how they were doing in Twister, but in real life. And yeah, there's just no way, you know, I'm not a scientist, but if I was, like, maybe I could figure something out where this would make sense to put it in the path of a tornado and see what kind of data we can get from it. But I just don't know anything that would be useful. I know that Reed Timmer's been doing like pressure scanner things. He calls them something. I can't remember what they're called. The gravitron sensors, I think. And they triangulate the pressure when a tornado passes over it. I don't know where that would be useful, but maybe there's some supercomputer. Yeah, what did this guy ask? Hey, just driving home. Hey, Zach, seeing you're alive. Question, I missed the question. Oh, there it is. How many tornadoes you guys get up there a year? We're lucky if, well, I mean, we get quite a few every year. There's usually one in every other county, but for it to line up where I actually see one of those tornadoes, it's pretty rare. Like, if I hadn't gone up to Watford City that one day, I wouldn't have seen the tornado that happened up there at Squaw Gap. And that was like, I made a wrong turn, so I had to turn around, so I barely made it. And if I hadn't been there in that split second, if I had been 1 second later, like maybe stopped at a gas station, used the bathroom, I wouldn't have seen that tornado. So it's extremely like common for tornadoes to happen here, but the astronomical odds of me lining up with the tornado to film it at the exact same time that both of us are in that area, it's extremely tough. And then, you know, like with Watertown, we were surrounded by tornado warnings. So I was like, well, I'm gonna see one. I just don't know where, but I'm gonna see one, and I did, because there were like 3 or 4 tornado warnings in my immediate area, like right where I was parked at. And I was like, well, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen now. I'm gonna see a tornado today, and that's exactly what happened. But that's a different kind of storm pattern. That was a linear storm, quasi-linear convective system, and those, I don't like chasing storms like that. I mean, I'll do it again, but I'll be in a much safer area. I was in like the upper right quadrant of that storm, which, as you guys know, in a hurricane, which kind of has the same storm structure as QLCS, the upper right quadrant is where tornadoes spawn the most. So yeah, that was real sketchy. Wouldn't recommend it. But hey, I got to see a tornado, so that was fun. I mean, looking back, there's really not a whole lot of regret. I would do it again. I would just be in a different area, slightly different area. Now this year we're gonna try to get 4 tornadoes on video, and hopefully none of them cause anybody serious harm or damage. You never want to see that, of course. We want them to happen in open fields, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they go through town. Personally, I have never seen one go clear through a town. I can't even imagine what that would look like or how I would react to something like that if I were filming it. Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, I've seen other storm chasers film tornadoes in the middle of town, and you know, these things are hucking buildings up in the air, 25,000 feet in the air, and most of these storm chasers are all freaking out. I don't even know if I'd have words. I think I would just kind of let the camera roll and just have my hand over my mouth and just try to refrain from screaming and yelling things out. Like you see a lot of these storm chasers on YouTube do that. They freak out. Anytime they see a funnel cloud, they start screaming. And I get that. It can be exciting. Like, I also get excited. Like, especially in Watertown. I was yelling in Watertown, like, when I saw that tornado. But it's because it totally caught me off guard. Like, if I have time to witness the tornado coming down from a safe distance, I'm going to be more like, I won't talk. I'll just, like, let the camera roll. And because nobody wants to hear me yelling about a tornado that's 3 miles away from me, and I'm not in any immediate danger, why not just film it for the beauty of the tornado? And then, you know, you got guys that will hold their phone or camera, whatever they're filming the tornado with, and it's all shaky. And so not only is the footage shaky, but then you've got all this screaming. It's like, for once, I'd like to hear the tornado. Like, I'd like to hear the roar and, you know, be able to take it in. But there's a lot of people that just don't film them like that. And that's why I kind of wanted to, that's part of the reason why I wanted to start this channel, is because I was going to try to do things differently and, you know, take it from a more like, let's just all relax about it and let's take it in for the beauty that it is, and we're just going to let the camera roll. And I wish that I could just live stream every time I went storm chasing, but the service out here is terrible. So unless we get like a scenario where I can stream a storm chase live to you without having to worry about bad reception areas, I won't do it. So I have to just record on a tripod thing here. And that sucks because I really want to do it live, but I've also seen other storm chasers attempt to do that. And my God, how bad would that suck? To be live streaming a tornado and have that tornado come through choppy and pixelated because there was bad reception. I don't think I could ever get around that. Like, I guess I should say I don't think I could deal with that. I'd be so upset. That'd be like a nightmare. Like, you know, you're witnessing this very rare thing that happens once in a blue moon with the perfect setup in a perfect supercell storm. And then your camera doesn't work because there's no cellular reception. So yeah, that would suck. That's why I just try to play it safe. And, you know, obviously the live stream is working great now, as far as I know, but it doesn't notify me if, you know, a cell tower goes down or something like that. It'll just straight up end the live. So I'd rather just record it and post it later. And then we'll save the live streams exclusively for, like, I would say, like, just severe weather days in general, where there is really no tornado risk. I mean, there could still be a tornado. I'll go live. I'm obviously going to keep going live because I like things happening in real time. It's more of a real experience for both the person watching and me. Because there's no cuts, you know, I can't cut anything out. So if something happens, you know, I might not get it on video just because I wasn't rolling. But when it's live, there's no, I guess there's no way to miss stuff like that, unless the reception cuts out. So I'm going to be trying to do more live streams this year, especially in the probably later summer, because in the springtime I got to have all cameras ready because that's when Tornado Fest happens. But once Tornado Fest subsides a little bit towards the end of July, that's when we start getting all those mega storm lines where there's so much wind at the leading edge of that storm. excuse me, so much wind that the risk of a tornado is slim to none. I mean, you may have a small spin up, but it certainly isn't going to be enough to blow your vehicle off the road. And so that I would be comfortable with, you know, live streaming for. And those are always cool to see in real time too, you know, being able to watch that squall line or something roll in. And granted, that live stream may be like an hour long, but then you guys can speed it up once it does render and finally upload to YouTube, and then you guys would be able to watch it back and speed it up. And then you can really see it come in, and it looks cool. It's like a rolling cloud.